Heyo, there's a guy that shows up on a lot of people's homepage in their recommended community posts, since he posts a lot of polls asking general questions, giving general options, and then everybody discusses the topic in the comments. It's very similar to what I do, where I ask questions, sometimes pertaining to a topic I'm going to talk about in an upcoming video, and sometimes just general shower thoughts. I don't know if he does them for the same reasons as me, but the reason I do polls is sometimes because I want people's insight, or even stories to a general topic that's on my mind, and then evaluate them all to come to my own conclusion. Even when I do my more rage bait polls, the point is to get people's reactions and responses because it's fun. So when I came across this guy's poll that asked how could OpenAI/ChatGPT become more popular, imagine my surprise when I saw that he turned off the comments. I've had my fair share of polls that I've regretted asking, since sometimes they were poorly worded or something along those lines, so the clear solution would be to delete the poll and either word it better if I still wanted answers, or just move on to another topic entirely. I don't see what point of turning off your comments to a topic you ask people's opinions for would be, since don't you ask these questions because you're genuinely curious on what people think, or do you think he asked these questions because he wants his opinion to be validated? When people turn off their comments, their audience usually goes to the previous post and comments their thoughts on that one instead, because turning off your comments is more of a symbolic thing than anything else. But the previous post was just a text post that asked, if people hate AI so much, why are Ray William Johnson's videos killing it right now? I think this question's rhetorical. Do you think this question's rhetorical? By the way, Ray William Johnson is an influencer who started implementing AI as a replacement for his millennial stock image visual for his videos. The reason he's still successful when most people hate AI is because he already had his claim to fame before he started using AI, and subscribers can be very loyal, especially when they consider the content they're watching addictive. The poll guy pinned his own comment that didn't answer his own question, and instead said that he loves what Ray's doing and wants to make similar content to Ray's AI generated content. I have my own very negative thoughts on influencers using generative AI images that I want to talk about later, but this poll guy is very pro AI and drops an essay of a post glazing the out of generative AI, to the point where he says that every time he's used AI, it's for a project he's worked on, because it's not like he can drop $1,000 on graphics for every idea, so he wants to use AI for his future content to lower costs to around $50 a video versus $500 that makes 10 times the content. Thank you for saying the quiet part out loud. He doesn't need AI because it helps him with his creative process, he needs AI because he's straight up uncreative. But he still wants money and attention quickly and cheaply. Hilarious to call it your animation channel when it's not yours or animation. People kept pushing back against his pro-AI position since it is factually taking jobs. Companies and brands aren't hiring people because AI can do it cheaper and faster. But he argues that with the technology of AI advancing, more jobs get created in the process. I'm so surprised the guy who doesn't have a single creative bone in his body thinks that working as an AI manager that overlooks AI making art is the same thing as working as an artist. He still justifies his viewpoints by saying that AI is still technology, and I mean, isn't it the same thing as an artist drawing on their iPad? Okay, pool boy, let's say hypothetically that I outright stole bits and pieces from your polls for an entire week and passed them off as my own because, well, I used my eyes to see what you posted and then I used my fingers to post it to my community tab. It's honestly basically the same thing as you using your eyes and fingers to post your poll on your community tab, right? And it's completely fine that I profit off of the content I stole from you, right? Since my audience knows that my polls lead into monetizable videos. That's the same thing, right? I hope you say no, considering it seems like your entire voting audience seems to understand the fact that AI shouldn't be so blindly accepted into every field. When he made yet another post asking people for feedback on the stories he wants to tell using AI, all the top comments are hating it, because even when people were trying to give him good faith feedback he explicitly asked for, he outright started to argue with people in his comment section while shifting the blame to another creator. In every single reply, his only take is, well, Ray's doing it too. Nobody likes spineless creators that only ever seek success from riding on the backs of other people's ideas and creation. When you compare yourself to another single creator that's doing well, you miss the hundreds to thousands of people who are doing the exact same thing and failing. There are millions of channels that are trying to get fame and money off of AI, and some of them succeed, but most of them don't, because why would they follow you if they could just follow the person you're trying to copy? It's so upsetting to see someone set themselves up as someone who likes seeing the diverse opinions of the people they're asking in order to get inspired by other viewpoints to just turn out to be, well, we can still be friends and agree to disagree about whether I can steal the stuff you make from your silly little hobby to make me money and clout. He states multiple times that he feels like he can't pay for an artist for the visuals he doesn't want to compromise because he says that it's just not sustainable. But what's ironic about that is he also brags about coming from money. A while back, he posted a very long rant about how he's proud of not going to college, and he ends out with advice saying that you shouldn't either. I can agree that not every career and opportunity requires college to become successful in that field, but this post is such a poor way to see it. It's already eye-roll worthy that he humble bragged in his beginning by trying to set himself up as someone that reflects on their mistakes, but instead just says, man, I really regret the fact that I wasn't rich, famous, and successful sooner. He tried tries to list a bunch of statistics that are incredibly misleading considering he chooses the lower end of those stats, and leaves out the fact that the other 83 and 70% of those stats support the fact that college is worth it. But he still concludes that 70% of people probably shouldn't go to college based on almost nothing. People choosing to either go or not go to college is an extremely personalized and context-dependent choice, so I'd say that it's very unwise to come to such a conclusion for everyone else just because you had a bad time in public school. But in the middle of his sob story about school, he mentions that his father was a doctor who excelled at school and even got a full scholarship to NYU, and despite having poor grades and admitting he quit trying in high school, he assumed that he would also end up at NYU. When his guidance counselor gave him a list of colleges he realistically qualified for, he dismissed them as beneath him because he wanted to go to NYU, but his counselor said that his grades weren't good enough for that. But his parents still believed in him getting in due to their legacy status, since both his dad and uncle attended, and his mom also banked on their financial stability. But from his story, it seemed like he didn't even try to apply. So to recap, he thinks 70% of people shouldn't go to college because he grew up in a wealthy, highly successful family with parents who worked hard when they were young to give him and his siblings a life with little worry and strife, and even though they ended up with a son that expects everything to be handed to him, they still believed that he could achieve exactly what he wanted using the hard work they accomplished. But when it came time to put in the tiniest amount of work to get there, he failed and blamed it on the system that set him up for success. I'd not recommend going to college unless it's for law, medicine, or engineering. Does he really think there's only 6 majors in universities? It is genuinely so sickening to think that his advice could genuinely people over, considering that even when he fails over and over and over, he himself still has enough of a safety net to live in an expensive apartment in Manhattan for 2 years without working before losing it to bad investments. Really giving "why are people homeless, just buy a house" energy. I'm really glad the comments are making fun of him for this because this is such a ridiculous thing to post. To say that college isn't worth it and then explain how the only reason you're not a complete and utter failure is because your father went to college and bought a 7-bedroom lakefront house with a pool as your childhood home that he then let you and your siblings inherit. He seems to have a knack of always bragging whenever he wants to tell his audience something. Even before he expressed his god-tier advice on college, he also posted another very long writing piece about why he doesn't want to get married and have kids, and some of the reasons he lists are insane. I will say that I really respect the fact that he knows and admits that he's not built for having a family or even a long-term relationship due to his narcissism, relentlessness, and lack of emotional availability instead of lying to himself and others. Even if he's doing it in between bragging about his upbringing, looks, and income, because those were very important details towards the point of this post. What I don't respect is his weird fixation on young women, even if he's willing to be honest about it. One of the reasons that he doesn't want to marry is because the person he would be marrying would age, and that's bad because he says that he will always want someone younger. I want to make clear that this isn't a preference if he actually meant what he said, because preferences aren't inevitable. If attraction disappears solely because time passes, then the person themselves was never the object of attraction or even seen as a person, because at that point you were just attracted to the number. I know a lot of people don't see this as a big deal, but it's such a red flag in someone when their favorite traits in a person are naivety, inexperience, and innocence. I'm not reaching either, since Pull Guy outright calls it pulling a DiCaprio and directly ties gaining more wealth and fame to basically unlocking higher level women. I mean, he's not interested in women romantically, so I guess the shallow method works if all you want is shallow one-night stands. But in a more relatively recent post, he asked, is it okay to date an 18-year-old at 30? And side tangent, I hate when he puts the answers like this. In YouTube community polls, you're only allowed to put 4 options, and it peeves me when he wastes 2 of those options by focusing on binary genders as if that matters. But anyways, he pinned his own comment expressing his opinion that he, as a 30-year-old man, doesn't see much difference in personality between an 18-year-old and a 34-year-old. He sees little to no difference in personality between a possible senior in high school and a person possibly going through a midlife crisis. It honestly gets even better when I see that people agreeing with his opinions are those who also see women as objects. I'm sure there are certain cases where maybe it wouldn't be so weird, but when you actively seek and choose the youngest possible aged women because you know for a fact that you feel tempted by the young and beautiful for existing, I guess, it makes it extra creepy. I know for a fact that he's talked about dating 18-year-olds multiple times, but I don't know if he's taken those other posts down because a lot of people were rightfully weirded out by it. But he's also just had a very weird history with dating. And I know most people will say it's his life and he can do whatever he wants as long as nobody's getting hurt. Well, I have great news for you, because not only does he like pulling DiCaprios, he also likes pulling Grandes. In another one of his posts where he wastes 2 of the options again, he asked if the voter has ever cheated on anybody, and again in his own pinned comment, comment, he says that while he's never cheated on anybody, which for some reason I doubt that's the case now, he says that he's been the other man multiple times. Some people were defending him since Pole Guy mentioned one case where the woman left her husband for him, and even when it didn't work out, she was still happy that she left, so people argued that Pole Guy actually did a good service towards her since he pulled her out of that relationship. Except no, that was one case where it ended with a guy who got cheated on, a woman happy that she cheated on him, and another guy who doesn't give a shit. Even if Pole Guy wasn't the one cheating, he was still participating in it. And even though sometimes one terrible choice doesn't make you a completely bad person, it doesn't make you a good one either. Especially since he's been the other man more than once, because it just shows me how he treats commitment and loyalty. And even when you aren't interested in romantic relationships, friends, family, and even business partners all value loyalty. Even when he tries to justify himself by saying that she was happier in the end anyway, it doesn't really matter. That kind of argument only works after the fact, because in the actual moment, you really don't know how it's gonna go. And considering the fact that he himself has said that he prefers people who live in the moment since it aligns with his lifestyle, I really don't think he'd be the type to care even if she did regret her actions against her ex in the future. Again, some people were trying to justify cheating by saying that sometimes people are in bad situations that warrant that kind of behavior. Even if in extreme hypotheticals, I can agree that people sometimes go to irrational lengths to try to escape or get back at their current partner. As a clear-minded person that isn't being influenced by an abusive partner, you should be able to support them, be a safe space for them, and maybe try to encourage them to leave in a healthy way that doesn't sexually take advantage of someone who's so distraught in a bad relationship that they feel the need to cheat. I believe it's different when the person seeking to cheat chooses someone that doesn't know they're in a relationship, but Pole Guy knew of his position, and for him to give advice to the same douchebags who are willing to help a woman cheat on their partner shows me that he also sees this as perfectly normal and even somehow a good thing. He doesn't question why he's so comfortable being involved with someone who he knows is in a committed relationship, or why his presence just happens to be the saving grace of these women, and also why his help also ends with him benefiting with the woman in the end, because he's the good guy, and the only thing he questions is why can no one else see it. I actually defended this guy for quite a while before I actually knew about any of this stuff, since I thought he was just a pole guy posting generic polls. Sure, he posts a lot, but I don't really think that aspect really matters. When people started getting more specific with their hatred, I wanted to look more into him to see if there were actual reasons for people not liking him outside of being slightly annoying. In my search, I found this woman who made a video talking about some insensitive posts and polls he made. I'm the kind of person that checks comments before I actually watch the video, but some of the top comments were saying that they came from Pole Guy's community posts about this video and chimed in with their own opinions as if they're disagreeing with her. But as I watched the video, I realized that these top comments that clearly got their likes from others that came from Pole Guy's community posts are arguing with a fucking wall. The longest ones are talking about how there's nothing wrong with having preferences for dating. Like, if you don't want to date a person with autism, who cares? It's their life. Just like if you don't want to date a person who's trans, who cares? It's their life. And while yes, that's true, that was also not her point. And based on the replies where everyone's just agreeing with them, it seems like no one got that. I think all the posts she talked about were deleted, but one example was asking, would you date someone with autism? With the answers including gender again for some reason. The comments made it seem like she's upset because Pole Guy won't date autistic people. But if you actually listened to her or even read the transcript like me, her point was that she felt like the poll was insensitive to people with autism because the way that Pole Guy framed the poll made it seem like he was dehumanizing autistic people by using their existence to just make a fun little poll. In the video, she explicitly states that she doesn't hate Pole Guy, but her concern is that he objectively does reach a lot of people. So when you have the kind of mindset that Pole Guy has that phrases things as if he views certain people as overly sensitive weird creatures and continuously perpetuates it, it can genuinely be harmful. But people in her comments keep trying to defend Pole Guy without engaging with her points, which ironically proves her point. He harbors an audience that doesn't listen to people and instead blames those same people when they call out possibly harmful behavior. Maybe he is truly a nuanced and complex individual that just wants to know more about others, but he doesn't seem to show those traits when it comes to his YouTube community tab. And the audience that he has that keeps up with his community tab posts reflect the behavior of someone who only thinks about himself and isn't really interested in anyone else's input, not even the person who's asking the questions input. Despite him asking questions, the way he sets up his polls are extremely biased to one answer. Like, I'm sorry if I don't take your questions as serious and as innocent as you and your glazers claim they are, with polls like, should transgender women be in women's sports? With the answers including a candid gif of a progressive politician and a professional photo of a transphobic crybaby that tied 5th place with a trans athlete and got outperformed by 4 cis athletes, and then a very old picture of you with a caption, subscribe. In one of his other long-form writing posts where he expressed his opinion, someone commented, yikes, good luck with the comment section. Pole Guy replied, don't care, I'll make an opinion and back it up regardless of pushback. I'm about making conversations. Oh, I'm sure you are. I don't know, man. I really want to believe that he genuinely makes content, expresses his very long opinions, and posts polls because he wants to make conversation. Because I also enjoy doing those things too. I make content expressing my extremely long opinions and post polls because I also enjoy making conversations too, and it's not like I know him personally or anything, but I just find it so odd that he has a public platform and audience when the stuff I showed is parts of himself that he willingly shows to his audience. He seems self-aware enough to notice the patterns and put a name on them, but it also seems like he's just not willing to change those things about himself. So I believe if that's a conscious choice that he's willing to make, then it'll also be his downfall. But I don't know, that's just me. Laters.